on to what Julie said about the all kids, because I know whenever you say all kids, you really don't mean mine, because we talked about the new direction is going to involve 3 areas: academic, 7 Ps, 21st century skilled problem solving, and social emotional companies perseverance. Well, maybe Scott does okay in the third one because he can perseverate like crazy. But every time the 7 Ps are held up as what academics are all about, you're leaving out my child. Every time. So, where is the discussion about the kids that don't fit into those 7 Ps, aren't going to fit into the 7 Ps, aren't going to go to a typical workplace? Where is that discussion?
So does everybody know what the 7 keys are? Pretty much. Some do, some. Let me very briefly.
Please don't.
Maybe 6, 7 years ago or so, the district did a study, kind of back map from successful college kids who from Montgomery County. We kind of back map what did they do when they went through the school system that then enabled them to do well in college, right? It's pretty interesting work. It was actually groundbreaking work in the country. And it was this idea of back map, right? So this is, let's look at what success means, what has led to success. And they're indicators, right? They're solid indicators of whether or not our kids are on a pathway for career and college readiness. I do not believe they're the sole indicator. That's why I've introduced the idea of 21st century skills. We're incorporating, I shouldn't say introduced, but we're going to incorporate 21st century skills and social emotional skills. And they're also an aggregate, right? It's you have to, one of the challenges we have 149,000 kids. How do we have high-level indicators that tell you about the health of the system, whether you're moving in roughly the right direction? That may not be about an individual child. And one of the things I tell principals all the time, I'd say there's sort of 2 reasons to look at the data. One is because the data helps you ask better questions, right? And so that's the best thing it does. At best, the data help you ask better questions. And the other reason is to name names, right? Don't look at averages, but you know the kids in your school. So use it. So you start with the 7 keys, and you say, well, how many of my kids are in advanced math? How are my kids doing on the state test? How many kids doing on AP, right? How many kids doing? And then you go through and you say, well, what's going on with each individual child in my school so that they too can access the instructional program that we have going. And then there are going to be some kids that it just doesn't fit for, right? And that's where the IEP process comes in. And that's where you're heavily involved to say, you know what, there may just need to be something different for my child than the sort of traditional track that we have for college and career, which is well captured by the 7 keys. So there's nothing that should prevent the development.
What is the broad set of goals for the kids that they'll fit in?
So again, all kids need to leave Montgomery County Public Schools college and career ready. All kids, right? We certainly have seen evidence of how our kids with special needs are being prepared for careers. Right? I've seen it in this building, I've seen it in schools, I've seen it in the community. Right? Do we have the right ones? Do we have enough of them? Can we have more? Important questions, right? We want to take a look at some of those issues. Absolutely. We have to constantly be looking at that. And one of the things about special education that's so wonderful and also quite difficult to manage in some ways is that it's different for every child. And if I can't say for the percentage of kids who are not, who the 7 keys don't apply for, and I'll come back to that in a second, because that can be a very, very dangerous road that we're recovering from currently in this country. It's one of the good things about the government. And for the kids who it doesn't apply for, you can't say it's one goal. It's the ability to achieve the 7 keys. That's why we have an IEP. Let's remember also, right, that unfortunately in this country, up until pretty much this generation, pretty much this generation. Special education was allowed to be a dumping ground. It was allowed to be a dumping ground. And some places it still can be. I don't think it is here, but some places it still can. It was allowed to be a dumping ground for black kids, brown kids, for poor kids, for kids who just didn't fit the regular mold. We're not allowed to do that anymore. And so you gotta say, well, wait a second. There might be some kids where it's just not the right thing for them. How do you do it in a way that's in concert with their family, that works for them, and is a true determination, and not one that says, you know what, this kid's too hard to deal with, and their mother or father won't complain, and I'm going to put them over there. That's what people were allowed to do for too long, right? We're not allowed to anymore. It's a very, very, very good thing. You need to be accountable for that. So that's the challenge with having a very high standard, right? Is that how do you make sure when kids legitimately, when that standard isn't legitimately right for them, you do something that is alternatively appropriate in concert with the family. That's where the individual education plan comes in. It's not going to be something for every child because it's going to be individualized. I don't know.